Okay, now the data before me now is just a few data sets of five variables that I extracted from the Nigerian demographic survey data uh, of 2018. Yes, it's a very large data set, very large data set. But I just extracted these five variables from the data set. The variable contains variable region, variable residence, educational level of the respondents, the respective ethnicity of the respondents, and of course their wealth index. And yesterday when I was discussing about what data analysis is, I told us that the very first step is for us to ask the right question. Questions like, what do I want to do? What am I planning to achieve? How can I improve this? How can I make this quality decision? You have to ask the right question. And of course, after I asked some set of questions, I asked myself some set of questions. We could have come on board to ask us some questions and pick the variables ourselves. But to save our time, I have asked myself the questions. I asked myself, like, okay, the question I asked myself was, okay, what kind of analysis can we just perform tonight to demonstrate cross tabulation? And of course, so that we'll understand. Fine, I answered that question. And I picked, I think of, okay, what about describing the wealth index of the distribution of wealth index of Nigerians according to the data in the demographic survey of 2018. How about if we can describe it? Now, after answering that question, what are the variables that are going to be necessary for me to be able to describe the wealth index of our respondents? What are the variables that, of course, is going to allow me to be able to describe, to categorize the wealth index of our respondents? And I came up with, of course, we can have several variables that we can use. Okay, the usage of internet, the educational level of our respondents. Of course, we can categorize our wealth index according to region. Of course, ethnicity. Of course, you might want to know how wealth index is distributed among the regions, the religion, Islamic religion, the Christian religion, and of course the traditional religion. There are a lot of variables that we can bring in to help us describe or categorize the wealth index among Nigerians. And the wealth index being my central focus, I have four other variables that are now picked alongside the variable wealth index. I want to show us the window. I want to show us the data set itself. I mean the demographic survey data of 2018. Can we see my new SPSS screen? Can we see the? Can we see?
No, we just see the variable view, not we can't see the what you just shared, just the variable view, sir.
Okay. I want to share the other screen. Can we see this very screen now containing a lot of variables?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, very good. So this particular data set is extracted from the Nigerian demographic survey data of 2018. It's a very large data set that contains hundreds of variables. Yes, it has hundreds of variables, and of course thousands of respondents. And if you can see the way I'm scrolling like this, we can see different variables. It contains a lot of variables, and of course, it's a lot of respondents. I think 120 something thousand respondents in this data set is actually a very long one. And some key things that I thought I would mention yesterday, like if you want to locate a particular variable, can be very useful in a kind of situation like this. Okay, I want to locate variable v v1 v010 from any point. I can just come to this particular tab, go to variable, and I will type in the variable name. It's going to take me to the variable column. Straightforward. I can do a lot of things with those shortcut keys that we learned from the ribbon yesterday. But that's not where I'm going to tonight. I This is where I extracted the five variables that we're using for our analysis tonight from. I think of, okay, what are the variables that can help me, like I said earlier, to describe the wealth index as distributed among Nigerians. Of course, I picked those four variables alongside my wealth index just from this particular data set. All right. Now I'm going back to the I'm going back to the variable that the data set we are using tonight, which contains just these five variables. All right. The very first thing on our table tonight is the descriptive statistics. And as the name implies, descriptive statistics is just a procedure that enables us to summarize our data. We'll be able to know how the data are distributed, how, maybe the largest of the data set, the largest in the data set, the least, the mean, the variance, the mode, the skewness, the kurtosis, maybe anything, the descriptive statistics covers this particular area. For example, looking at this particular variable wealth index, I can quickly click on it just from here, not even going to the analyze tab yet. Just from here, I can click on it and view my descriptive statistics. We can see the descriptive statistics here. Just this one is just basically, just the basic descriptives, right? And before we okay, now let me come to the analyze tab. I want to the descriptive statistics for the wealth index itself. Okay, I'm not clicking on frequencies, right? I'm clicking on descriptives. It gives me a window. It opens another windows for me where I can choose the particular variable that I want the descriptives. I can select all the variable I can select each of the variable by holding my control button down and clicking the variables one after the other, of course. And I can send them inside the variable box by clicking this arrow. But I'm not going far now. I just want a particular variable, let's say wealth index, and I'm sending it inside this box. Okay. Now, in the option menu, I have a lot of options for me there to pick from. I have the mean, the sum, standard deviation, maximum, whatever thing that you want, that you feel like you need to use to describe your data. You can pick from here the range, the standard error of the mean, and stuff like that. You can click continue and click OK. Now, we have this. But however, what we just see in our screen is something. We are seeing the mean here, and we are seeing standard deviation. Now, these values here are not real values, in the sense that the variable that I chose is a categorical variable, and the ones and twos and threes that were used to represent some categories of the variables are not actually 1 and 2. It's as if I said male should be 1 and female should be 2. I now want to look for the mean of those values. It's not possible for me to look for the mean of male and female. It doesn't make sense. That is just what we are saying here. It's not making sense for me to be looking for the mean of poor, rich, and stuff like that. So that is why we have to do some things on the data set so that we'll be able to understand our data set very well before we continue. Now, looking at these data sets, I want us to perform some little manipulations on some of the variables I could have done this before the class, but I want us to do it together, and so that we see the importance of what we learned yesterday. Okay. So, for example, I'm starting from wealth index. Now, I want to describe wealth index, and what I want is I want to categorize you. Maybe you are, it's either you are poor or you are rich. I don't want to know if you are poorer or you are poorest. I don't want to know if you are rich or you are the richest. I don't want to know. I want to categorize you as either you are poor or you are rich. Okay? And what we have here is that it's either you are the poorest, you are poorer, or you are a middle class person, you are richer and you are richest. Okay? All of them denoted as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 respectively. If you come to our data view, the wealth index, we are seeing rich, richest, and stuff like that. If we toggle this button, this particular arrow here, we are going to be seeing those values changing. It means that 5 is standing for the richest, 4 is standing for the richer, okay, and the middle is 3. Now, what I want is, I don't want to see 1 to 5 again. I want to see, okay, maybe 1 and 2 or 0 and 1. I don't want all these long numbers again. I want to categorize you as either you are poor or you are rich. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to categorize the richer and the richest as being rich, and then the poorest, poorer, and middle class as being poor. Okay? I can choose to categorize them into 3 categories, but what I want, or what we actually help us tonight to be able to come out with meaningful inferences, is to categorize them under 2 categories. So I'm going to be having poor and rich at the end of the categories. Now let's go. Let's look at how the first thing is for you to note how the values are being labeled originally. Okay? We've seen that 1 is for poorest, 2 is for poorer, 3 is for middle class, 4 for richer, and 5 for the richest. Okay, now let's go and categorize them. I'm going to be transforming my variable, and I'm going to be recoding the variables. And in this case, I can either recode into the same variable or I recode into different variable. It's going to give me the same output. But when I recode into the same variable, I'm going to be losing the former variable with the former labels. Okay? But when I recode into different variables, the former variable is going to be there for me. Okay? And I'm going to have the new variable. What do I mean? Let us recode into different variables first, and let's see what happens. I'm recording for wealth index this time around, and the new variable I want now is wealth. I'm naming it wealth, and I'm labeling it wealth index recorded. Okay, now I'm changing this. I'm clicking on change. Now I'm going to assign all the new values. I'm going to assign values to the. Now remember, 1, 2, 3 is poor and poorest, poorer and middle class. And this set of people, I want to name them poor. Okay, they are a range. I'm going to click on range, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. Okay, their values now should be 0. Hard. And then 4 to 5 range, 4 to 5. I want them to be the class of the rich. Give me 1. And of course, if I don't want to say 4 to 5, I can say that all other values apart from 1 to 3, okay, they should give me 1. Still the same thing as saying 4 to 5. Okay, continue, and then okay. Now the output window is telling us that has been executed, and what we have here now is the new wealth index. If you check our data view, a new variable has been created, and the new variable contains only 1 and 0. If you look at it, it contains only 1 and 0. There is no other variable there, no other this thing there. Now, I don't want to be in any decimal place, zero decimal place, of course. And now, what I'm going to do now is to assign labels, assign values to the variable. Now, if it is zero, that means you are in poor category. Add it. And then if it is one, that means you are in the rich category. Add. Okay. If I come back here, this particular tab is now changing from rich to poor. So anyone that is in the class of richest or richer in this place is going to be rich here. Okay, it's going to be rich here. And anyone that is in the class of middle class is going to be it's going to be in poor class. Or if you're in the class of poorest and poor, you're also going to be in the poor in this new class of people that I called wealth. Now, that is recoding into different variables. What if I choose to recode into the same variable? Okay, I'm transforming, recoding into the same variable now. Now, you notice that recording to different variable, I still have my original variable in my data set, right? But now, I want to record into different variables, into the same variable, and now transform, record into the same variable, and I'm choosing wealth index. I mean the former wealth index, the one I have not recorded. Okay, old and new values. Let me remove these guys. Remove. I can still leave it actually. I want to repeat the process. 1, 2, 3. Give me 0. Add. And then 4 to 5. Give me 1. I'm adding it. Continue. Okay. Now, I think there is a problem here with this. This 0 is not supposed to be there, but that's not the cause for alarm. We're not using this variable. Now, the recording I did now it has effect on the original variable in our data set before. You understand? So, recording to the same variable, it will actually record the existing variable in your data set. Thereby, you won't be able to have access to the former variable you want. And even there was a mistake in my recording, this variable is gone. So if you are actually very careful what you want to do, you can record into the same variable. But if you want to leave chance or space for maybe you might make a mistake or you want to perform some other things or stuff like that, it is actually better or safer to record into different variable. Then, of course, you can actually delete this variable. I'm deleting this variable. I've recorded my wealth index into rich and poor categories only. Now, the next variable I'm going to be recording here is the ethnicity. If you look at ethnicity, we have a variety of them here. We have Ekoi, Fulani, Hausa, Ibibio, Igala, Igbo, and stuff like that. Okay, now I'm going to be recording them into 4 categories: Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, and others. Other tribes is going to be encompassing the I don't know, the others, the thief, Kanuri, Ijo, and other tribes, Igala, Ibibio. I'm going to be categorizing them as others. Why Hausa, Fulani, Igbo? I'll be putting them as separate categories in the variable. Okay, now let's do that. Now, the first thing again is for you to note how it is here, so that you will know how you are going to recode into different variables. Okay, now after noting them, I've noted them now. Okay, now I'm going to transform and record into different variables. I'm choosing ethnicity this time around. What's the name, variable name? I'm changing it to tribe this time around, and I'm still changing it to tribe. Okay, the label is still tribe. Change it, and then old and new values. Remove these guys here, and then assign new values. Now, Fulani and Hausa, I'm going to be making them a single variable. Fulani and Hausa should be a category. So Fulani is number 2. Fulani is noted with 2. Hausa is 3. So I'm going to say range 2 to 3. give me 1. Okay, and I'm going to say then the Igbos are number 6. I labeled number 6 a value, a single value. Then number 6, I'm assigning 2 to them. That's for the Igbos. Now, the Yorubas are number 10 on that label, on that values of the label. Now, number 10, I'm coming back to value, assigning 3 to them. This is for my Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. Now, what I'm going to do now, instead of typing number 1, number others, I'm just going to say all others, all other values, apart from the one that are already defined in this box. All other values should give me 4. Okay? Stopped and okay. The variable has been created. This is the new variable containing only number 1 to 4. It's in 2 decimal places. I don't need decimal places in my variable. I change decimal place to 0. And of course, then the values are still showing none. I have to divide my values now. Now, if it is 1, I'm calling them Hausa. Okay? If it is 2, they are Igbos. If it is 3, they are Yoruba. Then if it is 4, they are other tribes. Calling them others. Okay. Coming back here, the variable tribe has been created and labeled appropriately. You can see down that the variable tribes has been categorized into just 4 categories. That is just some to do is cross tabulation. And when for cross tabulations, we must have more than cross tabulations. If the categories of your variables are too much, you may not be able to have meaningful inference from it. For example, you have a category tribe, and the category of ethnicity, before we recoded, if I can remember, it's more than 10. Okay? If I now have a cross tabulation with those categories, it's not going to be making senses. Now, the very best thing is for me to categorize them accordingly. Those with like terms, those with having like properties, I can bring them together. Okay, so that I'll be able to have meaningful interpretation when I want to interpret my analysis. So it helps us to reduce the dimension of the categories in the variable, and it's a very, 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 very useful thing whenever we want to do analysis. For example, if I want to do a binary logistic regression, for example, and for that one, your dependent variable must have 2 categories, and the dependent variable you have is having 3, 4 categories. The best thing is to categorize those 3, 4 categories into 2, like the way I did for wealth. Those that are poorest, poorer, and middle. Okay, you are poor. It's either you are poor or you are poor. It's not like you can be poorer. That one is just a class of telling us the intensity. You are still poor. No, you understand? You are still poor. That's what that language is saying. We categorize them as being poor. Then rich, richer. All of you are rich. It's either you are rich, you are still rich. Either you are richer or you are the richest. You are still in the category of rich people. We still categorize them into 2. So the recording to different variables helped us to have it in binary response. So it's a very important manipulative skill that we need to employ at times when we want to do our analysis. Okay, now coming back to our data, I'm going to be taking it slow. I won't be rushing anymore. I was rushing because of some things, but I'll be taking it slow at this point. Okay, now we've recorded the tribe. We now have 4 categories for tribe. All the thief, the BBO, and This was the categories. This was the tribe before. You can see how much they were. I think 10, 11, 12 categories for tribe. We've been able to reduce it to just 4 categories, 4 meaningful categories. Okay, we can say that others are other minor tribes in Nigeria. 4 meaningful categories. Fulani and Hausa, we group them into a category. Igbo, another category. Yoruba, another category. Then other tribes, another category. You can see that that is going to be more meaningful than working with this set of categories in the analysis. So that is the reason why we recode, and that is the reason why we assign new values to the recorded variables. Okay, now I don't need this variable again. I can decide to leave it in my data set, and I can as well decide to delete it. Okay, but I'm choosing to remove it. I've deleted it. Okay, now the variable educational level. No education, primary, secondary, higher. I'm not going to touch this. It's making sense already. The way it is making sense. It's making sense. You can leave this one like that. Then residence, the place of residence of our respondents, urban and rural. Perfect. Making a lot of sense. We leave it like that as well. Then the region, the 6 geopolitical zones we have, also perfect. We don't have to touch it. We leave it like that. Now, coming to the analysis part that we now have to do, since we are now sure that our data set is okay and we can now move on. We are moving to the Analyze tab. Let's start with frequencies. And I'm going to be working with a variable. During our own practice time, we can choose some other variables to work or practice with. Frequencies. Let's look at tribe. I'm bringing tribe in. If I want more variables, I will still send them in simultaneously. Okay, but I don't want to do that now. Now, the statistics we want for our frequencies, we can decide to choose anyone here. You know, the quartiles, the mean, and stuff like that. You can choose and check it here. Charts, part of the what's it called? The visualization that we're going to look at tonight. But this is not where we're going to discuss it. We can choose it here as well. But let me just choose some statistics. Mean, no, it's not making sense for us to be getting the mean because they are descriptives, they are categorical variables. So it's not going to be making sense for us to be calculating the mean for this particular variable. Okay, but we can actually look at the let's see what we have. Let's see the output we have. Let me choose minimum and maximum and stuff like that. And let me look at charts, bar charts, or even pie charts for the variable. Okay, and we have the output. Now this particular statistics here is not making sense to draw any inference from it because for tribe, the mean is telling us the mean for tribe is 2.39, which is not making sense. Okay, it's looking at a numerical value to give us the mean. It's not making sense. But however, we can look at this particular table and draw out meaningful inference. This table is telling us that the frequency, the total number of people, total number of our respondents is 127,545. Okay, and it's telling us that out of these people, 41.7% were Hausa, and Igbo were 13%, Then Yoruba were 9.9%. Okay, and the other tribes combined together were 35.5%. It shows us that in the survey that was conducted, that Hausa has um, more respondents. Okay, and this particular chart is also telling us the same thing. The blue shaded part represents Hausa, and we can see that it has the largest portion, followed by the others um, in the orange color, and the other ones as well. So that is just a simple descriptive statistics for our categorical variable tribe. Now let's look at the descriptives. I choose tribe. Options, still the same thing. We are still going to be getting the same thing. Okay. But the only thing is that the descriptives, it won't give us the option for us to plot a chart or do something, or plot a chart basically for our categorical variable. And even we are working with a continuous variable, we can actually explore and see some things that are possible. For example, let's quickly compute a variable. Let's just quickly do that. Compute variable, and uh, I'm computing the weight of these respondents, random numbers. I'm computing it. It's going to be following a normal distribution, and I'm saying RV dot normal. Let's say the mean of their weight is 74.5, and the deviations is 9.5, 9.6, and I'm naming it weight. RV dot normal. Okay, so we now have this weight particularly here. Now let's compute a descriptive statistics on this particular variable. Weight, options, we have all the options checked, and I'm sending this one out. I don't need this, so okay. Now this is telling us we can now bring out meaningful inference from this particular descriptives, because the variable is a continuous variables measured on its continuous scale. We now have the minimum weight that was generated to be this particular guy here. This is the minimum weight, this is the maximum weight, and this is the mean. This is the mean weight as we just simulated. So this and the range, the large difference between the largest weight and the smallest weight. This is just what we have here. So we can see just basically descriptive statistics help us to show the summary of data sets that we have, so that we'll be able to know what we can actually say about it. Now, moving quickly to cross tabulations. Now, cross tabulation is used to describe relationship between two categorical variables. Basically, you have two categorical variables, maybe and gender and place of residence, and you want to describe the relationship between them. It is best to be described using cross tabulation. Now, it's also called contingent table. You can also call it a two-way table, of course. And the dimension of the table also says something about it. For example, if the row is equal to the column, is a square contingent table. We don't need that. The basic thing is for us to understand that it is used for the description of two categorical variable. Now, the requirement is that number one, we must have two categorical variables, and then two or more categories for each variable. For example, variable wealth index is a categorical variable. Fine. The categorical variable must have two or more categories. But if the categories is getting too much, contingent table or cross tabulation will not be able to make meaningful inference from it. For example, you have like 15 categories from a single variable. It will not be too meaningful unless we group it like we did earlier. So let's look at how cross tabulation works, and then after we do some statistical tests on the cross tabulation. Okay, uh let's look at the poor and the wealth index. I'm sending it to the column, and of course the place of residence, I'm sending it to the rows. This layer part, we'll come back to it later, but let's look at this and let us explore. For the exact, you click continue, there's nothing we have to touch there. Then for the statistics, we are not touching anything here yet as well. Okay, now for the cells, we can choose to click for the observed, expected, and then for the percentages, we can choose percentage for row and column. Let me choose percentage for row, and then we continue. Then we can choose to display clustered bar charts, or I'm not choosing that now. So okay, now we have the output of the cross tabulation. Okay, now the very first table here is showing us the processing, I mean the summary of the case processing. Maybe we have a missing value there. It's going to show us the number of missing values we have and numbers of cases that was processed. But basically, this is our table for the cross tabulation between place of residence and wealth index. Now, this particular table is showing us that for the respondents that reside in urban area, we have these particular numbers of them are poor. For those of them residing in urban area, these particular numbers of them are poor. Or let me say 39.6% of people that reside in urban area are poor. While 60% of people that reside in urban area are rich, which in actual sense, in reality, is making sense, because you always find richer people dwell in urban areas, and you will find poor people dwelling in rural areas. So let's look at the rural areas. Rural area have 84.2% of the poor. They reside in the rural areas with this particular number. Okay, why just 15% of them reside in the urban area? And of course, it's true. If you go to the urban areas like Abuja, you will most likely not find people that are of poor, okay, let me look at a very rich city like London, for example, that the standard of living is very high. You most likely not find poor people in the city. Okay, that is just what this is saying. 15.8% of people that are rich dwell in rural areas. Okay, just a very little percentage of people that are rich dwell in the rural areas. That's what cross tabulation does. Let me just analyze this without the percentage so that we see it very clearly. Cross tabulation and the statistics. I don't want the cells, I don't want the percentages. Okay. So without the percentages in display, this is just the cross tabulation between the wealth index and the urban. We can see that we have been able to describe, to say something about the people that are the wealth index of people that are in urban and those that are in rural areas. We have we have more rich people. We have more rich people that reside in urban areas than the poor that reside in urban areas. And of course, we have more poor people that reside in rural areas than the poor people that reside in urban area. Now, taking this a little bit further, uh, cost tabulation, taking this a little bit further, let's look at the statistics, chi-square. Now, the chi-square test is a test that helps us to check if there's a significant relationship between two variables. Of course, we've seen that a particular number of people reside in urban and reside. We want to now check if there's a significant relationship between place of residence and wealth index of people. Okay, now the chi-square test will do that for us. Okay, and I'm clicking. Let me include the clustered bar chart as well. I'm clicking OK. Now we have the output for the cross tabulation, but we've interpreted that as well before. So now we are coming to the chi-square test. Now the hypothesis for chi-square test, the null hypothesis states that there is no significant relationship between the two variables, while the alternative hypothesis says that there is significant relationship between the two variables. Okay, now if p-value is less than 0.05, we reject h0. Rejecting h0 simply implies that there is significant relationship between the two variables. Okay, now for this particular variable, place of residence and wealth index, okay, we can see that now this is what we are using. This is the test we are using. This particular test, this is the p-value. We can see that the p-value is 0.000. No, there is no p-value, cannot be 0, but this is less than 0.01, right? Approximately, this is less than 0.01, and it is less than the level of significance, which is 0.05. And this implies that there is significant relationship between the wealth index of respondents and their place of residence. Okay, let's look at another set of variables. Okay, before we leave here, we have the clustered bar charts. Okay, this is just helping us to visualize our data, and this is showing us that this is just showing us what we have on the contingency table. That okay, it's showing us that you can see the code here. The blue is for poor and the red is for the rich. For rural areas, we have more poor people. Just a glance at this chart is already telling us what we have on the contingency table. For the rural areas, we have more poor people. Okay, and for the rural areas, we have more poor people. And for the urban areas, we have more rich people. As simple as that. You can see how the clustered bar chart was able to explain the contingency table for us in just a glance of an eye. Let's look at another variable. Cross tabulation. You've not been seeing the output ever since.
See, yes, I wonder too.
Oh, sorry, that's Telegram for you. That's Telegram. That's Telegram.
Okay.
Sorry. So now, let me just show us the output again, and before we, so this is the cross tabulation between place of residence and wealth index, right? And we can see here that we have more more rich people reside in urban areas. Okay, because 26,000, more than 26,000 people reside in urban areas, while 17,000 people that are poor reside in urban area. And for the rural areas, we have more poor people residing in rural areas, which in real life, that is the case. More poor people are residing in rural areas, while just a few percentage of the poor of those that are residing in rural areas are rich. Now, I now say that moving to the bar chart explains it for us just at a glance of an eye. Looking at the rural areas is colored blue, okay, and we can see that the rural areas, the poor people are colored blue. We can see that the poor people have more frequency than the rich in the rural area, which implies that we have very much more poor people residing in rural areas than people that reside in urban area. Also, looking at the urban, we have more rich people. Rich people are in red. We have more rich people residing in urban areas than those residing in rural areas. And now coming to the chi-square test. This is the output for the chi-square test. And I said we are going to be using the Pearson chi-square here to make our decision. I said that the hypothesis for this is that H naught is there is no significant relationship between the two variables. And the alternative hypothesis is that there is significant relationship between the two variables. And of course, for our decision making, we are rejecting H naught if p-value is less than 0.05. Okay, and in this case, this is our p-value. This particular guy that I highlighted in black is our p-value. It is of course less than 0.05, which implies that we are going to reject the null hypothesis. And rejecting the null hypothesis implies that there is significant relationship between the two variables. And having this, it means that your wealth index determines where you are going to base. It means that your wealth index, it actually determines where you will live. If you are poor, there is high chances that you are going to be in the rural areas. And if you are rich, there is high chances that you are going to be in the urban areas. That is the chi-square test of independence. And now I want to analyze again. I'm changing my screen to the SPSS screen now. This guy, sharing this guy now. So let's look at another cross tabulation that we can bring out a very meaningful inference from it. Let me send tribe inside the column. Okay, no. What index should be in the column? I'm sending this out. I'm putting tribe inside this place, and of course, I want to layer it with the place of residence. I've layered it with the place of residence. Let's look at what happens. I don't need clustered bar chart this time around, and I'm not performing chi-square. I just want us to see what we have. Now, when I layered it, I have the cross tabulation output here for me. This is the output. Okay, let me share the screen for the output. Sorry. Okay, can we see my output now?
Yes.
Okay, now. Now, when I layered it, I used the wealth index on the columns, and I used the tribe on the rows. Then I used the place of residence to layer it. Now, interpreting this particular result, it means that now for people that reside in urban, we have this particular number of Hausa people, of poor Hausa people residing in urban area. This particular number of poor Hausa people resides in urban area. This particular number of poor Igbo people reside in urban area. This particular number of Yoruba people, poor Yoruba people, resides in urban area, and so on and so forth. So we can see that we can even use three variables to explain the cross tabulation. Okay, cross tabulation between three variables. You can see that it's actually very possible. So we can describe the relationship between three categorical variables with the cross tabulation. Now, place of residence, the tribe, and of course the wealth index at the same time. Now, before I leave the cross tabulation, I want to entertain a question, please. Before I leave cross tabulation, I want to entertain a question. Before we leave cross tabulation, I
Hello?
want to entertain a question, please.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well done.
Thank you very much, sir.
I want to ask. I want to ask two questions.
Okay.
The first one is meaning that the Likert. What I mean by Likert scale is
Okay.
the measurement. That measurement
Yes.
to know
Yes.
the level that a variable belongs to. Either
Yes.
agree, strongly
Yes.
agree, disagree,
Yes.
strongly
Yes.
disagree, and
Yes.
neutral.
Yes. Yes, sir.
It could also be in categorical form.
Yes,
That's
they are
that
in categories. Okay.
yes, thank you. Good. Which means that it could be cross-tabbed too with some other variables that are
Of course, it is possible. It is possible. We can actually know the categories of people in a particular variable that agree, that disagree, that strongly agree, that strongly disagree with the other variable. Do you understand?
yes.
Yes, with cross tabulation, we can actually do that as well.
Okay. I also observed that you link three variables.
That's what?
You link three variables here.
Yes, yes, I did.
Yes, I want to quickly tap from that. How did you
Okay.
link the three variables?
All right. I'll
Just
go back.
yes.
I will recap. I will recap on that, sir. Now, the last one we did was I used two variables and then I layered it to one other variables. Let's do that again. Cross tabulation. Okay. Now, of course, a lot of things is possible. Depends on what we want. Wealth index this time around. Let me send it to. Let me put it on the rows, and
It's not
the
sharing, no.
it's not sharing.
It's not sharing.
Okay, hold on, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is it sharing now, sir?
Yes, I can
Are
see
you
that
saying?
you are trying to pick.
Okay, okay, all
Yes.
right, all right. Now, the wealth index this time around. Let me send it to the columns, and the
Region.
educational level. We are yet to use this. Let me send it to rows, and of course,
Okay.
the I now want to include a third variable to layer it. Now, that variable is what I'm going to be sending inside this particular box. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
let me use the place of residence here. Did we get that?
Yes, yes, yes,
All
yes,
right, all right. So
yes, yes.
we click OK. Of course, after the class, we can take a take our time to explore what is possible at this crosstab window. If we next if we next it, we can still layer it again with another variable. Okay, we can take our time to explore what is possible on this cluster on this we can click this. You can just try a lot of things, display clustered bar charts. We can also explore and see every other thing that is possible. We can do some other things, but just for us to have a broad overview of what we can do here. So I'm layering it with just a variable, and of course, I click OK, and that is how
It work.
we come with this. So, as I said, what what this implies on this table now, this particular number here, it is showing the number of poor people
Well,
with no
we cannot see
education.
your output.
The screen, the screen
Oh,
is not showing.
sorry. Output, share screen. Okay.
Okay, good.
You can see my outputs now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, now I remember I have the wealth index in the column. I have the educational level on the row. I layered it with the place of residence. This is the place of residence. Now, this particular number is showing the number of poor people that have no education, that is not educated, that resides in urban areas. Okay? They reside in urban area, right? This particular number is showing the number, this particular number
Yes.
is showing the people, number of people number of poor people with primary education that resides in urban area. The same thing. Of course, if we include percentages of the rows, we are going to be able to say some meaningful things about it. Let me just quickly include percentage and cells, percentage of the rows, and of course, okay. Can we still see my output?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, the 66.4% of the poor that have no education at all resides in urban area. We can see
Yes.
how the three variables were linked together to say something meaningful. 66.4% of the poor that have no education at all, they reside in urban areas. Okay, why 33.6% of the rich that have no education, they reside in urban area. So we can see what it is possible. We can go ahead to write a report on this table based on the percentages. We can actually also include the percentage per column also. It will help us as well. And of course, we can try that in our own time. So I still want to entertain question. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, yes. What a good job.
Definitely.
Kudos.
I'm
All right, sir.
following.
So any other question, please? Any other question before we quickly go into visualization and we come to the end of the class? All right. In the absence of none, I'll be moving to data visualization with SPSS. Of course, I won't be taking much of our time here. In the next 5 minutes, we are done. It's just to show us how things is done, and of course, on our own space, we can try a lot of things. Now, for us to be able to visualize data as analysts, we have to understand what is possible. Not all kind of variable can be represented in all kind of charts. Not all kinds of variable can be used on anyhow any type of diagram. Like for example, a categorical variable will not be suitable on an histogram. A continuous variable cannot work on a pie chart. So we have to understand basically the types of variable we are working with before we know the type of visualization that is appropriate for it. So understanding that will help us to um, to excel properly in visualization, not just in SPSS, in Excel, in R, in anything we lay our hands on analysis, Power BI and stuff like that. Understanding the variable you are working with and understanding the kind of chart that can be used for the variable matters a lot. Now let's look at how some data can be visualized in SPSS. Okay, we saw some the other time when we were doing cross tabulation. I clicked on display cluster chart and we have a beautiful chart displayed for us. There is a general way of doing that without involving any analysis. Okay, graph. And we have two. I'll be showing us two options here tonight. The first one is the chart builder, and the second one is the graph board template chooser. Let me start from this graph board template chooser. Okay, I'm choosing it, and seeing this graph board template chooser, we're seeing something that are possible. Okay, now this is a bar chart. This is a chloroplet of counts, like a map. This is a dot plot. This is an histogram and pie chart, of course. Yeah. So now I want to plot the region. Okay. Let's see how the region is distributed. Of course, we can choose more than one variable. Okay. I choose two variables now. We see what the entire interface changed because it changed to some things that are possible with two variables. All right, let's just click a variable and region bar of counts, and let's click OK. I'll be sharing my output window now. Okay, now the visualization for the region, we can see that just displaying this particular chart shows us that we have higher number of respondents from Northwest region, and the next people with the highest frequency is people from the Northeast, followed by people from the North Central, and then Southeast, Southwest, and South respectively. That is the essence of data visualization. It is meant to be able to summarize the data for us just at a glance on the chart. Okay, now graph. Let me use chart builder this time around. Can we still see my screen? Can we still see my screen? Okay, yes, we can still see my screen. I can confirm that. Okay. Chart builder. Now, in chart builder, we actually have to choose the chart and set the variable we want on our x-axis or on our y-axis ourselves. That's just what I see as the basic difference. Now, here, for example, I choose bar chart. I want to represent now some visualizations that are good for or useful when we are representing categorical variables. We can use bar chart. We can use stacked bar chart. We can use pie chart. We can use Pareto chart, donut chart, tree map, stuff like that. Okay, for categorical variables. But if you are dealing with continuous variables, variables that are measured on a continuous scale, we are going to be talking about histogram, line chart, scattered plot, box plot, and some other things like that. So now, for region, it is a categorical variable. Okay, I'm choosing bar chart. Now, the type of chart you want, we click it on this window, double clicking it, right? Double clicking it shows me a simple bar count on this window. Now, the variable I want, I will drag it to the axis, maybe x axis, and we can see that the chart has been plotted. Okay, now I can decide to put it on the y axis. It's not showing something meaningful, right? So put it on the x axis, and the chart is plotted. We can set a lot of things, chart appearance. You don't want it to have, you can actually change the color, use custom color. You can change the colors and stuff like that. So, and a lot of other options that is there for us to explore. All right. Now, what I just did now, I included the weight on the y-axis while the region on the x-axis. Let's see what we have on our output. Still processing. Chart builder. I'm removing the weight. Now let me just plot an histogram for my categorical variable. This particular guy, weight. Okay. 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 The 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 weight is following is following the normal distribution because we simulated it with a normal. So the histogram is actually looking perfectly, having a perfect bell shape because it was simulated following a normal distribution. The real life data will not, most likely not look like this. And of course, we can set the bin size and do some other things with our histogram. Also, box plot. Okay, the weight. Put it here. Now we have our box plot for the weight. And a lot of other options is possible for us. Pie chart. Pie chart is for categorical variable. We can look at the wealth index. Okay, this is not going to be interesting. let's look at educational level. Okay, just looking at this, it shows us that almost half, in fact, more than half, or even let me say half of our respondents have no education at all. So that is just data visualization. We can explore more at our own at our own time, and of course, we can learn more, even much more than we've been taught tonight. I On this note, I want to believe we've learned something tonight. I want to believe we've achieved something together, and I will still have to allow us to entertain some questions before I hand over to the host. Thank you.